Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Greater Hudson Heritage Network's Connecting to New York Collections webinar. We were just holding off for a few minutes to let some of our last-minute attendees join us. But I am Priscilla Brendler, the Executive Director for Greater Hudson Heritage Network, and I'd like to welcome you once again to the series on protecting cultural collections. For those who may not be as familiar with it, maybe for you this is your third webinar with us. We are a cultural service organization formed to advance and advocate for the preservation and interpretation of historical, ethnic, and cultural heritages. We deliver resources on assistance, professional workshop training for heritage keepers who collect, preserve, and interpret in a diversity of uncommon community settings. Greater Hudson Heritage Networks also administers the statewide Conservation Treatment Grant Program on behalf of NISCA, which is the New York State Council on the Arts, to support professional conservation treatment procedures, to aid in the stabilization and preserving New York's diverse cultural collections. I hope you're all familiar with this grant opportunity because we are one of the only organizations in the entire state that has funds that are distributed for the conservation of your objects in your collections. The next grant deadline will be for June of 2014. You can find information on the grant opportunity on the Greater Hudson website, which is greaterhudson.org. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us about this. And the grant announcements will be going out typically in January. Today's webinar is part 3 in the series of environmental monitoring and control. The webinar will be specifically addressing using the PEM2 monitor and its software for monitoring the environment. I just wanted to let you all know that the PEM2 monitors were sent out mailed last week to all of our participants. If you did not receive it yet, then what I will recommend is to keep an eye on the mail. It should be arriving at any time within the next couple of days. And we did have a couple of last-minute attendees who joined us who wanted to borrow one of the monitors. Those will be going out either yesterday, today, or tomorrow, so don't worry. The content that will be covered today you'll be able to access and catch up and look at the monitors as we're doing this. So appropriately timed, I'm going to ask Carrie to take a look and to tell us a little bit about any IT issues.
Aha. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to just start by saying you may have noticed that you have had 2 options for listening to the webinar, either through your computer speakers or by calling in. If you are calling in, you would have been supplied with an audio pin. Do not need to use the audio pin. Because of the number of attendees, we have muted you all. If you entered the pin and we have you muted, it's going to cause static on the webinar. So rest assured you don't need the pin to hear the webinar. If you did enter the pin, please hang up and re-call into the webinar without using the pin. Be aware that there's going to be a delay if you do that. If you are listening through your computer speakers and having trouble with the sound, here are a couple issues that might be what's going on. First, you aren't going to want to close any other programs you might be running, but don't close out of the browser because you might log out of the webinar. Second, if you're hearing an echo, you may have mistakenly logged in twice. Third, if you are using a weak or wireless network or a wireless device as a hotspot, you may have trouble with the sound. Worst case, you can change from the voice over internet protocol option, listening through the computer, to listening through the phone. Just click on the telephone option button on your attendee dashboard, dial in with the number provided and the webinar code, but not the audio pin. And then you can resume listening. But again, be aware there's going to be a slight delay. At the bottom of your attendee dashboard is a box for you to ask questions. These can be technical questions for me, like what is the call-in number, or questions about the webinar material for Rachel to answer. Rest assured, we can see all of the questions and comments. You won't be able to see them, but we can. You're not just sending them off into the void. We will be saving these questions to ask during the end of the program. Another thing to remember is that today's webinar, we have asked Rachel to start on the telephone. So it's probably going to sound a little bit different than it did last time. Just please be patient with us. We are broadcasting from across the ocean here. So I think that's about it. I'm going to turn it back over to Priscilla now to tell you more about the IMLS.
All right, thank you very much, Carrie. I appreciate that. First off, we'd like to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for providing funding for this program through the statewide Connecting to Collections grant program. And thanks to IMLS and their generosity, we're able to bring you today's webinar, and of course for those wonderful PEM2 monitors that you have in your possession, plus the year's access of the Internet portal and the eClimate notebook that you have. The Connecting to New York Collections program is a partnership between Greater Hudson Heritage Network and other heritage organizations throughout New York State, which address specific preservation training needs in connection with the collection types identified in the statewide survey as at risk in New York's planning project. These specifically are books and paper, photographic collections, digital materials, and historic objects. Training is being provided via this four-part webinar series. This is series number 2. Web-based how-to instructional clips, and the Circuit Rider mentoring program, which will provide free site visits for collections care. Hopefully within this week or next week you will receive in the mail a postcard regarding the Circuit Rider program. This is available to every organization throughout the state, no matter what kind of collection you have, to request free, of course I'll say that again, free site consultation. It is in essence a free site visit for half a day, where the collections person will come and work with you. It could be a conservator, it could be an archivist, it could be a curator, whatever the issue you have, we will happy to address, and they'll then provide a 3-page write-up. Now, don't think you have to only have them come once. You can have someone come out and help you with setting up your PEM2 monitor, and then have someone else come back and work with you on the best housing solutions for your textiles. You could then have someone else come back and work with you on your paper collections. You can come back as frequently as you wish, as long as I'm able to spread out the Circuit Rider potential as far throughout the state as possible, and as long as time goes through. So you have about a year to do this. If you have any questions, you can go to the Greater Hudson website or the c2cnys.org website with information and how to sign up. Next, we're going to be talking about using the PEM2 and software for monitoring the environment. Okay, this webinar is going to train you folks how to use that wonderful piece of equipment that you have it's online for the next year, and it will basically cover setting up and troubleshooting the hardware, downloading data, reviewing, analyzing the data, all the information which Rachel will be going through shortly. Now, we did mention that thanks to modern technology, we do have Rachel joining us from Israel. We ran into a little bit of buffering challenges last time because of the time delay with the Internet. You heard Carrie mention that Rachel is on the phone and she will be using the phone to present today's webinar, but please give her a little bit of chance in case there's any sort of time delay coming overseas. Hopefully there shouldn't be a problem with that. Rachel is a professional associate of the American Institute for Conservation, and she has been a conservator partner in AM Art Conservation, located in Cold Spring and in the Hudson Valley. Her firm provides conservation treatment services and preservation consulting with a focus on environmental monitoring and other preventative care services for clients of all size, big organizations, small organizations, private collections, whatever it may be. She is the author of the National Park Service Conservograms and Data Loggers for Monitoring and Museum Environment, and has been a co-instructor at one-day workshops on understanding microclimates at the 2011 AIC annual meeting. So prior to entering her private practice, she worked at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian, the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, the American Museum of Natural History, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Her degree is in art conservation is from the University of London. In addition to her private practice, she is active in several professional organizations, including the e-editor for AIC and the co-chair for the Integrated Pest Management Workshop Group. And interestingly enough, she actually likes to play with these data loggers. So as we go any further, we're going to pass this on over to Rachel. Oh, that's right. We forgot. We have a couple of polls for you. I'm going to read them for you since it'll be a little bit easier that way. So I'll read them out loud, and we'll give you a chance to put up your responses to some of these poll questions. The first poll question that's coming up is, have you ever used the PEM or a PEM2 monitor before? You can press yes, no, or not sure. So go ahead and take a quick vote right now. Very good. About 80% of you have never used it, it's fluctuating slightly. So that's very good to know that 75% have never used the monitor. Great, thank you. We're going to go to our next poll question. And that question is, does your institution currently have an eClimate Notebook account? Let us know, yes, no, or not sure. As we'd expect, if you don't have a PEM2, you probably don't have the notebook. So therefore, 81% do not have it as well. That's pretty much keeping with those who have a monitor. And the last question is, in general, how comfortable are you in transferring files online? So if you're not sure what that means, then I think you probably hit not sure what I'm doing. Or you get along just fine, or you live online and you have no problems. About 52% of you get along just fine on the internet, with about 23% who are a little bit foggy on what to do, and another 23% who are experts on using internet technology and have absolutely no problem with any computers. Okay, I think that was our last question. Thank you so much for helping us get some information on that. And next, what we're going to do is pass the webinar off to Rachel. Okay, Rachel.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hello,
Hi,
Rachel.
Carrie. Hi, everyone. Does the volume sound okay?
Yes, you sound good. You can go right on ahead.
Terrific. Okay. Let me get my screen up. So hopefully my audio and the slides will stay in sync the whole time for this session. Welcome, as Priscilla said, to the third webinar in GHHN's Series 2 webinar on environmental monitoring and control. In contrast to last month, where I gave a whirlwind tour of a broad range of options for monitoring your environment, today's webinar is going to focus on how to set up the PEM2, the Preservation Environment Monitor second generation. So PEM2 is much easier to pronounce than that mouthful, as well as the cloud-based analysis program called eClimate Notebook. The eClimate Notebook, or ECNB as it's often abbreviated in print, is also it's actually a sort of third generation product developed by the Image Permanence Institute. The first was the Climate Notebook software, which was a desktop program, and there's still a lot of copies floating around out there. Their first foray into online data management was called the PEM data website, and so eClimate Notebook is now the current iteration. I want to emphasize at the start here that in addition to the webcast of this program, you'll be receiving the notes with all of these slides, and that they'll have all the screenshots. There's also a lot of information online through the Image Permanence Institute and the ECNB program. So don't feel like you have to remember everything that you're hearing and seeing today. All of these resources are going to be available to help walk you through the process of getting everything set up when the monitor arrives or when you're ready to get it going in your institution. Okay. So this webinar is going to start to pull together a lot of what we've discussed in the previous two sessions. Today we're going to see how to examine your temperature and RH data and see how those contribute to the types of deterioration we've discussed, the mechanical damage, chemical decay and corrosion, as well as biological attack. Today we're also going to briefly review some of the recommendations I gave in the second session on how to get monitoring started in your institution. And as you see, for the final program next month, we'll talk about what to look for as you analyze your data and how you can start using that to make decisions about what is best for your collection as well as for your budget. Okay, so a bit of a review. Who is on your environmental management team? We have a broad range of institutional sizes participating in the program. So some of you may be an environmental management team of one, but many of you have presumably have some sort of facilities or operations staff. And so at a minimum, your environmental management team would then be two, hopefully working together in harmony. Because ultimately, having this data doesn't help if you don't have the ability to affect change based on it. And so your operations or facility staff is going to be instrumental in making sure that any necessary changes are made to your control systems. Ultimately, you should all be working together within your institution to find the best compromise between what is best for your collections, achievable in your climate and buildings, acceptable for the occupants in your building, and ideally least energy consuming. Those are our goals. And I have to say it's not always, not everybody feels that those are in the same order, and so that's part of your discussion. Let's see. Okay. So why the PEM2? There are a number of reasons why we chose the PEM2 logger for this grant project. And as I ran through very quickly last time, some of the different kinds of loggers and how to sort of evaluate or make decisions on the different kinds of bells and whistles that loggers will have, let me just sort of tell you a little bit more about the PEM2 and why it's found favor with the preservation community. This is really the only logger. There's a lot of loggers on the market. Many of them do a decent job of measuring parameters like temperature and relative humidity. But the PEM2 was developed specifically for cultural heritage, the cultural heritage community. And part of that is went into sort of thought about what kind of hardware we need and how it works, and much of that sort of thought and energy went into the Climate Notebook program. But so some of the advantages of the PEM2 include a 10-year battery life and a memory, a large memory capacity. Here it says it will hold more than 20 years worth of data. One of the things that is some people might see as a downside, but it just is what it is that unlike other loggers where you can choose the sampling rate, that you can choose how often the data logger takes a measurement and records it, the PEM2 takes a sample every 30 minutes. So you're getting 2 readings per hour. Well, this was chosen specifically so that you could have long data sets and get a sort of broad sense of your environment over time without the program being bogged down. If you're monitoring every 5 minutes, you're going to accumulate a lot of data very quickly. So if you're trying to monitor your environment to find out a very specific program that might be, specific problem that's happening with your HVAC equipment, a sampling rate of 30 minutes might not be fast enough. But what the PEM2 was really developed for was what we call sort of general trend monitoring, the sort of longer term trends going on in your building, in your collections environment. And for that, this 30-minute sampling rate is completely appropriate. One of the big things that people like very much about the PEM2 is that the data retrieval uses a USB flash drive, and in the package with the PEM2, there will also be a slip that tells you that you need to provide a flash drive to be able to launch and read out your data for this program. So you don't need it today. Again, I don't expect that you're sort of following as we go along, and I'll come and give you some more specifics about the flash drive in a minute. But the idea is that your monitor sits in the collection space where you're monitoring, and you can just walk up with your little USB flash drive, plug it in, grab your data, and go back to wherever you're going to upload it. The logger is accurate for the broad range of temperature and RH conditions that most of us see in our collections. You'll see here it says accuracy is 2% within the 10 to 90% RH range. And then if you get outside of, if you're under 10% or you're over 90% relative humidity, the accuracy, should be within 3.5%. Again, since we're looking at sort of the broader trends of what's going on, this is perfectly appropriate. We're not food service or a pharmaceutical industry where an even higher degree of precision might be necessary. The calibration on the monitors is also quite good. They're calibrated at 5 points, so at a low RH, sort of more moderate RHs, and at a higher RH, which should ensure that they are calibrated across like the full spectrum of conditions that you would see within our kinds of institution. So, so we have accuracy and long-term continuous monitoring. We have the USB flash drive, and then the other thing that is the big advantage is that this monitor is designed to work with the eClimate Notebook program, and that program was designed specifically for cultural institutions with the kinds of preservation metrics we need. Okay, so getting started and retrieving data using a USB flash drive. There's another couple of names for flash drives. Sometimes, they're called USB drives, flash drives, thumb drives. They're all the same thing. Image Permanence Institute has its own that they sell on their website. So if you don't have one in hand, or can't pick one up at your sort of local Office Depot or computer store, you can order one online. So there's nothing special about the flash drive. You can, anyone that you may have on hand would probably be appropriate. However, you want to make sure that it is clean and empty of other data, and that for the duration of this project, that you use that flash drive, that you dedicate it to the downloading of your PEM2 data. What we have discovered over time is that that if you're using the flash drive for PEM data as well as other kinds of files, you can wind up getting some error readings. So again, any kind of flash drive is appropriate. It doesn't need to be the one from the Image Permanence Institute, but it should be empty of all other files and used only for downloading PEM data. Okay. Hopefully, if you haven't already, you will soon be receiving the packages that Priscilla has sent out in the mail, and in it will be the box containing your PEM2. When you receive it, you'll be opening your box, and you should see on the little screen monitor a crescent moon icon. And that indicates that the monitor is in sleep mode, which means that it's not recording while it's traveling through the mail to you, and that when you wake it up, it's going to start from that point. And so ideally, you want to bring the monitor into the location where you will be monitoring before you wake it up. So let's take a step back and review a little bit of what we discussed last week about logger locations. There's no magical number of monitors for locations. If you're getting one through this program, but if you have others throughout your institution, you're going to be looking for a place to put this that is going to provide information that you need to know. So you can be looking at where there's conditions that differ from the majority of your space. So do you have a collection area that seems particularly hot or cold or particularly moist? Do you want your data to be representative of a space, a particularly significant collection, or to diagnose or confirm suspected poor conditions? Again, one logger isn't really enough to have a full understanding of a larger building, but it is a start. So put the PEM2 in a room where you have collections that you are concerned about. After you've decided on the room, you want to figure out where you can comfortably place the unit so that it is accessible. So meaning, anywhere from 4 to 6 feet from the floor, someplace that you can reach. That it's not on the floor or, right under the ceiling. You ideally want to avoid having the PEM2 placed directly under a duct or against a window or heater or in direct sunlight. So once you have the logger in the place where you want to be logging, you're going to launch it, to set it up to start recording. As you see in the image here on the top, on the side of the unit is the place where you will be inserting your USB flash drive. So you're going to insert your USB flash drive into the slot, and the moon icon will disappear, and an hourglass icon seen in the center of the lower image will flash on and off for approximately 10 seconds. And from the point when you see the monitor alternating between a temperature and relative humidity measurements on a 15-second schedule, you will know that you are now collecting data and you are all set and up and running. So it really is that simple. You plug your USB flash drive in. It's going to take you from sleep mode to an active monitoring mode, and that's all you need to do to start the monitoring process. There are a few things that occasionally can go wrong. It's electronics, and these things happen. So in the box with your PEM2, there will be a little quick start guide sheet, and that will have this information on it as well. But there's a number of different icons, including this the little flashing wrench at the bottom. You shouldn't see the 100% or the battery icons, because those tend to only come up if the unit has been in service for a long time, meaning although you could get the, if you haven't cleared out, if you're reusing a flash drive from something else, that could be a reason why you get that 100% reading. Ultimately, if you see the flashing wrench when you launch, the other thing to do is just check and try a different flash drive and see if that could be the problem. So hopefully, all of these units are new. They were recently calibrated and just sent out. So hopefully you should not be seeing any of these other icons during the year that you are monitoring. But if you do, please contact Priscilla and the Greater Hudson Heritage Network for instructions, and we'll tell you what the next step should be. Okay. So retrieving data from the PEM2 is almost as simple as launching it, but there are a few more steps. And once you get your unit up and going, I suggest that you wait maybe 24 hours or no more than a week before you do your first download, just to make sure that everything is fine. So you're going to do your data retrieval in the storage or gallery area where the logger is located. You don't need to remove it from its location. It is, however, okay to move it to access it if you need to do that. Moving it around isn't going to change anything. The RH sensor, though, is located where this little opening is. So if you do move it and sort of bring it down closer to you to be able to insert your flash drive, just try and avoid sort of breathing directly on the monitor in this spot. Okay, so you're going to insert your flash drive into the slot on the right-hand side of the unit, like you're seeing in the image, and that hourglass icon will reappear and it's going to flash on and off. When the hourglass icon disappears, you can remove the flash drive, which should now contain your data files. If you have more than one PEM2, there's a 20% of you, I understand, are already using PEMs. So obviously, if you have more than one in your institution, you just take your flash drive and go off to the next unit. Each of them have a unique serial number, and so the data files are named using the convention of P2, standing for the PEM2 unit, followed by this unique serial number of the monitor. So for instance, 00030. And then there's a 3-character file extension that reflects the upload number. So for instance, 001 is going to be the extension for the first upload of that unit once it's launched. So again, your first file name from your first download, when you see it online, is going to be named something like P2 underscore 00030, or whatever the serial number is for your unit, dot 000001. Your second download will be 002. So in the future, when the USB flash drive is inserted, the PEM2 will transfer the data accumulated since the last download. All previous data remains stored on the PEM2, but it's not going to be transferred at every upload. It's only going to transfer material that it needs since the previous download. Okay, so once you have inserted your flash drive in, waited for the hourglass icon to disappear, your data file is on your flash drive, and you're ready now to transfer it to the eClimate Notebook website. So I am going to concentrate on the eClimate Notebook site, but I just wanted to make sure that you know that if you do happen to own a copy of the original desktop version of Climate Notebook, you can still use that, and the PEM2 data files are compatible. You can also, just by putting your flash drive into your computer and opening up, the window, you can view your data file as a text file using Notepad, Microsoft Word, or any other document program, as well as Microsoft Excel or any other kind of database. So if you are an Excel savant and you prefer to use that, you're welcome to take a look and use access your data in other ways. Excuse me. Okay. For this grant-funded project, Greater Hudson Heritage Network has paid for a Professional Plus membership, which allows all the program participants to upload their data to the Greater Hudson Heritage Network account. As you'll see from this screenshot from the eClimate Notebook webpage, an eCNB account is free if you have if you're only monitoring in up to 3 locations. So if you have 1, 2, or 3 data sets, you can have a free account. However, you don't get all the groovy analytical tools that you will have access to by using the Professional Plus account. The screenshot I'm showing here doesn't show you all the data management features. If we scroll down, you can view this page on the eClimate Notebook yourself. Webpage yourself to see if what you would be missing with a free account. To participate in this Connecting to Collections New York project, you must be willing to upload your data to the Greater Hudson Heritage account. If you'd like, you can create your own account now or at the end of the project to transfer your data to. But for the duration of the time that you have a GHHN logger, you must upload your data monthly to this account. I want everyone to understand that this means that your data won't be private, but I believe that over the course of the monitoring year, you're going to derive benefits from viewing the data of your colleagues and seeing that many of you share some of the same challenges in controlling your environment. Using the shared account will also enable us to support your monitoring efforts and will ensure that any of the circuit riders whom you can call upon to visit your site have easy access to your data. I think everyone knows to respect the privacy of our colleagues, and we can agree to keep any issues that we see online or that we discuss in the next program amongst ourselves. So to upload your data, you're going to open your browser of choice, and you're going to navigate to www.eclimatenotebook.com. And then you're going to look for the login area on the top right corner, which is indicated here with this big black arrow. I have created username and logins for most of you already. Your username generally is the institutional name that you provided to the Greater Hudson Heritage Network without any spaces or punctuation. So that does mean that for a few of you, I modified your name for the purposes of your username. So when you get the notes for this presentation, you'll get a list of the usernames that have been set up to date. But just to give you an example, I'm using Beacon Historical Society, all one word, and then all of you have been set up with the same password. Again, we're all sharing the account. Your data won't get confused. You all have unique usernames. The password for the time being is C2C online, and the password will be case sensitive. So once you get the notes for this presentation, I do ask you to check that your username has been set up without any egregious spelling errors or typos that I might have made. So it's not essential, but it will be useful if you notice something to notify Priscilla, Carrie, or myself before you upload data for the first time. That will be the easiest way for us to correct that. So if you notice a problem in your username when you get the full listing, you can email me or GHHN. And if you're adventurous, once if you registered in good time for this program, you can probably even try it after we get off online together. So once you're logged in, you will see the main screen. And it's going to look something like this. You may see data in there depending on sort of who was the last person to access the site, and you'll see what that looks like in a minute. But the next place that you want to navigate to is the Data Manager, which is the tab here on the top indicated by the black arrow. This is where you're going to go when you're ready to transfer the data from your USB flash drive up to the site. Okay, so you're going to plug your USB flash drive into your computer, wherever your little flash drive goes, depending on what kind of computer, laptop, desktop, Mac, PC you have. So here you'll see the Data Manager tab is highlighted. It's a slightly different color. And within this tab, within this section of the site, we have two options. We have Data History and Upload Data. And you're going to go to the Upload Data section and click on the Upload button. This will bring up a screen that says Select File or Files to Upload by eClimateNotebook.com. And so just like any time you're sort of attaching a file in any program, you're going to navigate, in this case, down to your removable disk. So depending on how many other things you have attached to your computer, it won't necessarily be the F drive on your computer, but you're looking for, for the drive, that flash drive, to access the files that are on it. So once you find where your files are located, what is indicated by your flash drive, you're going to click on that. And then you're going to see all the data files that are on your flash drive. This is showing you a picture of a flash drive that has actually a number of monitors and several different downloads. If this is the first time you're going to be doing it, you will only have one data file to look for. So that's going to make it easy for you. Again, here you can see what I was talking about before with the naming convention here. So this is the fourth download for logger serial number 07080. And this was the third round for all of these other data loggers here. So ultimately, you're going to click on the file you want, and then you will click on Open in the bottom right corner here. Once you do that, you will see the data file you have selected here on the left where it says Data File. And then on the right, it will give the same serial number. But in this case, you're going to replace that data file name with the name of your logger's location. And so what I'd like for you to all do is to rename that file there on the right-hand side using some portion of your institutional name that's identifiable, and then a more specific location identifier. So for instance, let's say Albany-textile storage, or Bard-paintings shelf 02, or Beacon-gallery 09. So the idea is that when your data file is on the site, it will be easy for us to identify which institution that's associated with. And once you have done that for the first time, you're going to then click OK. And during subsequent data uploads, every time the eClimate Notebook site recognizes the data file from that particular logger, it will associate it with your file name. So once you do this, once you give it a real file name, that serial number is going to be associated with that location unless you move the logger, in which case we would have to change that. And that's I'm not going to go into today. But if that comes up, if you decide, you know what, I put it in my basement, but the environment there isn't as bad as I thought, now I really want to move it to the attic, that's something that you'll want to get in touch with us so that we can tell you how to rename your data file and relaunch the logging process. Okay, so you selected your file, you clicked upload, and then you're going to rename it, your data set, so with something that's going to allow us all to identify each other online. So this just gives you an example of how it would look. Here there were multiple data sets being uploaded at one time. You can do one or more than one. And so here you can see this was the naming convention for the Greater Society of Mayflower Descendants. So we gave it the GSMD for that particular site name, and then we're monitoring in the solarium, the parlor, and the cherry bedroom, and the attic. And assuming that everything is fine with your data file, hopefully you should get the nice green message that says the following location data sets were successfully uploaded and are ready to process. And then you will click down here to continue to graphs. Once you click on that continue to graphs, it's going to take you back to the main graphs page. Here you'll see that this is the graphs tab that is highlighted here, as well as within the graphs tab, we're looking here at temperature data. So that's the T that's highlighted sort of brighter than the other metrics here that you're taking a look at. So right now, you're looking at 3 separate data sets here from the Greater Society of Mayflower Descendants. The red is from the cherry bedroom. The blue is the data from the parlor. And the teal is the data from the solarium. You can see also here over on the left a listing of all the data sets on this particular account, and you can see that these are checked off. So that page is a little bit simple because it was just one site, and all the data on that site is going to be theirs. On the GHHN account, we are going to have anywhere between 30 and 40 institutions. And so in order to manage all of these different data sets and to be able to sort of find your own data and not get confused, we have a way within the Professional Plus account to set up an organizational hierarchy. So once you've uploaded your first data set, then what I'd like you each to do is to go back in to click on this Data Manager tab, and then instead of where you were in Upload History, you're going to click on the third option called Manage Hierarchy. So I have already set up the hierarchy for this account. You have 4 different levels, and our level 1 is going to be by the county. Our level 2, so we're moving from broad to increasingly specific. So level 2 is going to be for your site or building. Level 3 will be for the floor that you're on, so either basement, first floor, second floor, attic, however you designate it within your institution. And then the fourth and most specific identifier for this location will be your room number or whatever room identifier you use within your institution. So that's the 4 levels that you'll be asked to put in. And so what you'll do is you'll scroll down here on the list. Right now you're seeing data sets that are already in the account. But once your data is uploaded, you will see that there will be an entry that has your institution's name and room number that you gave it during the upload process. And then you're going to click on this little pen icon here. And it's going to bring up 4 boxes for you according to this different hierarchy. And you'll click on the little plus sign, and you'll enter the data for each field. So for instance, you can do your county is Albany. Your site / building is the Albany Historical Society. Floor is basement, and room is storage 01. If you're overwhelmed by this process, don't worry about it, and you can send me or Priscilla an email, and we'll help you get set up. But hopefully, with the notes for this, this is a process that you'll be able to do so that you can name everything the way you want it. So what happens with this hierarchy is this is an enlargement here. So you're looking at the Greater Hudson Heritage Network account. Right now, these are the counties that I have entered. So this is the level 1 identifier. And then what you're seeing here is, I'll talk more specifically about it in a moment, but this is the external data from the outside that you'll be using down the road to compare to your internal data. So in this case, my level 2, 3, and 4 identifiers are just all external, and then my particular data sets are here. So ultimately, when you go and upload your data and manage your hierarchy, you're going to then, when you go to the graphs, find your data set within your county, and then within your site, within your floor, and within your room. So your data won't get lost amidst, all of your colleagues. You'll be able to find it very quickly. Okay, so next we're going to want to start taking a look at our data. When you do this for the first time, you're only going to have, 1 day or, 1 week of data. So it's not going to look like much in the beginning. But I want to just introduce you to some of the tools that, that we'll review again next month when we talk more about the metrics and how to really analyze and make use of your data. But I want to just sort of give you a bit of a whirlwind introduction to the different features of the site. So what you're looking at here is sort of an enlargement of this left dashboard. And here, what this top box is allows you to choose what portion of the data you're looking at. You can look at all of your data, or you can just look at a select amount. And you can choose that by the calendar function here on the side, or by entering the date into the button. The next, sorry, my trackpad went a little crazy there. Next is the graphing tools. So here we're looking, we're in the temperature window, and we're looking at the scale goes from 30 degrees Fahrenheit up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. If you wanted to change that, so you were looking at 0 degrees to 100, you would simply go in and change this. temperature limits allows you to put in two bars that that sort of show you what your expected range is. And what I may try and do is take you over to the live site and show you what that looks like. So here we're back in. I'm grateful to the General Society of Mayflower Descendants for allowing me to show you their data. But what you're looking at here is, again, 30 degrees up to 100 degrees of their temperature data. But for this particular building, which is a historic structure with very limited environmental controls, basically all they have is heating for sort of moderate heating for the winter. We've set up sort of a target range for 60 degrees up to 80 degrees. That's where we'd like to see them. How we get there is a different process. But as you can see, these bars here are achieved by putting in the limits that you want and clicking show. And then there's a number of other different buttons that you can play around with at your leisure. You can export your graph. You can print your graph. You can create your graph as a full screen. So let's see if that will do it quickly. There we have a full screen, so you can do a print screen or other things with that. Let's you can email the graph very easily if you're using Outlook or another program from the Climate Notebook program. I'm not going to go into this right now, and you can sort of play around with the colors. So these are, just some of the different things that you can do to show the different graphs here. So again, when we're in our account, there's going to be lots and lots of different data sets. You can show up to 8 data sets at the same time. If you try and show more, let's see, how many do I have here? I have 2, 4, 6, 8. So I will not get over the limit. It gets a little crazy to look at a lot of data at the same time, but it can also be sort of, very interesting in other ways. Here, what you're seeing is this purple is the external data for Plymouth, Massachusetts, and then all of the other locations that we're monitoring within the house, which tend to be following the same trend, although some are more dramatic or variable than the others. So the one that shows the biggest difference is the cellar, which in many ways is actually the most moderate in terms of its temperature. So if I don't want to look at so many of those, let's say I really just want to look at what's going on in the cellar, I'm going to uncheck all of those other buttons. So again, if you go in to upload your data and you go to the graph and you see that there's a lot of other trends there in that central window, all you'll have to do is to go over and check or uncheck. But because we have, now I'm jumping over, hopefully this won't confuse everyone, to GHHN site. And so again, you'll see your data is going to be located within your county. And so in order to see your Albany data, you're going to want to check that off. And then you may want to uncheck all of that information from Queens County. Okay. So here we're, again, looking at our temperature data. We've got the T highlighted here. Let's switch over now for RH. Again, this is external data, so that's why it is very variable. And what you'll see here, once we switched over to RH, our graphing tools also switched over. So our the default for the RH scale, unlike temperature, which is 30 to 100, although you can reset it, on the RH scale, the default is 0 to 100. And again, if I wanted to show limits here, I would click on Show, and I'd say, okay, well, our target for, if we're pretending that this is external data, is we'd like to keep ourselves within 30 to 60%. And all of a sudden, our black bars. And this is nice because it gives you just a really quick visual sense of, how much of your time are you within the band where you hope to be. For those of you who are still wedded to your hygrothermographs and you like looking at both your temperature and RH data at the same time, you can click on that at the top bar. In this case, I'm going to navigate back to the Greater General Society of Mayflower Descendants so that you can look at a data set that's a little bit closer to the kinds of things that we'll be seeing. So here you're looking at the RH in the pink trend as well as temperature in the red together. So again, keep an eye on the fact that this is 0 to 100 for your RH trend on the right, and it's 30 degrees to 100 degrees. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just how you prefer to look at it. And so the program is set up with a lot of flexibility. We're going to spend more time on these other metrics down the road in our fourth program. But I want to just quickly show you what they are, and you can play around if you have the energy before we meet again next month. DP is dew point, which we've talked about in our first program. There's the relationship between temperature and relative humidity and dew point. And for more about that, there's you can review our first program, or you can also go up to this resources section of the site where there are a number of really great and informative little video clips that talk about some of these metrics. So we're going to come back again to dew point in our final program next month. One of the popular metrics is mold, and let's see if we can. Okay, so let's move us around so we can see. Okay, so this is very interesting. We set up the monitors in the cellar of the Mayflower building in the summer of 2012, and when I visited to set the monitors up, they had active standing water in their basement. What you're seeing here is the data logger takes the temperature and RH measurements and puts it through an algorithm which basically says that mold is going to germinate when you get to this 1.0. So the goal for here is to have all your data points below this 1.0 level, which says germination. So as you can see, this was not the case in their cellar for a long time until they installed in this past winter a number of humidifiers. And since then, their data has remained well below the point at which mold would germinate. So let's take off the cellar and let's look at a different location for this. You can see in the cherry bedroom where we have actually a very warm environment, an uncomfortably warm environment during the summer, and an environment that, as a result of that high heat, is the RH is actually fairly moderate, but it doesn't really get up above 65% for long sustained periods of time. So that's the data for temperature and RH. If we run it through the mold matrix, you'll see here that it's showing that they really never have long sustained periods which get them close to this germination rate. So we would never expect, based on this data, to see mold in the cherry bedroom. The PI and TWPI are metrics developed by the Image Permanence Institute to try and get you to think about the relative merits of your data, of the relationship between temperature and RH. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this now because we'll come back to it next month. But the difference between the PI and the TWPI, TWPI stands for time-weighted preservation index, and PI is preservation index. Ultimately, what you want here is for this number to be as high as possible. The preservation index is how long do you have before you would see some sort of deterioration on that material. And this algorithm was based on very sensitive materials, things like certain kinds of films that the preservation index, the Image Permanence Institute studied. So the idea was to give you a sense of when people say, what's better? Is it cold and moist, or hot and dry, or trying to sort of figure out where they stand. So the idea is for any given point of data, you can sort of see what kind of lifespan would that give you. The time-weightedness of it is this idea that if you've had your collections in a poor environment for a really long time, and then you improve the environment, you still have a long way to go before you can sort of, you can never undo that period of time in a harmful environment. To give an analogy that Jim Riley likes to use is that if you leave milk out on the counter for several days and then put it in the refrigerator, it's not going, at that point, it might slow down, it might buy you a little bit more time before your milk spoils, but it doesn't undo that period of time when you left your milk out in the out on the counter. So that's the idea, and again, I'll come back to this. But this is sort of an interesting tool to try and understand. What you see here is that the environment was fairly low. This is a pretty low number, not even like about 20%. But one thing that the society did within the last year, and you're seeing it here in the data, is that they put in window films and filters which reduce some of the heat load. And so you see over time that the numbers go up here, that they're getting a little bit longer life because they've brought down the high heat that contributes to the chemical aging. I'm not going to go into the dimensional change in these metrics now because I don't want to overwhelm people, but we'll come back to that on the next in the next program. So let's take a look. So we've been looking here at all the different options under graphs, but there's some other ways to look at your data as well. So here I've just clicked on the Analysis tab, and the Analysis tab gives you two options. You have Risks and Metrics and Statistics. So let's take a look at a couple of locations here. You see as I check them off on the left, they appear here. And this is really nice because in one place you can get an overview of your data. Here we're looking at the full data set, but again, we could change that if we wanted to look at a particular subset of our data. We get the mean for our temperature and RH and dew point all in one place. These are the metrics that I sort of briefly ran through, or at least the time-weighted preservation index, and we'll discuss the rest next month. But what many people who still find that they're learning how to be comfortable in looking at their data find useful is this idea of the risk summary. And here you're seeing the program uses a green for good, red for risk, and gray for you're sort of in an okay, safe range. And there's a summary for each of the kind of deterioration that we discussed in our first program. So natural aging, mold risk, metal corrosion, and mechanical damage. So as you can see, the cherry bedroom, because it's so hot in there, is at a high risk for natural aging. We're baking the stuff in there, but because of that, we don't have high humidity conditions there, and so the mold risk is not an issue for us in that location, where it is in our cellar. You can see the cellar is not an appropriate place for collections based on this. For mechanical damage, which is like the kinds of splitting or cracking that happens more often due to an unstable environment, you can see that we're doing okay in that metric. So, so if you're not used to really being able to look at your raw data in a graph format and understand what that means, like translating that data into the kinds of deterioration that you might see on your collections, this risks and metrics section is going to be the place for you to go. The other thing to look at is the statistics. And so here for the 3 locations, we can get a more in-depth look at our statistics. Again, we're looking at the full range of data. We have our temperature, our minimum, our maximum, our mean and median for temperature, relative humidity, dew point. And these are the temperature and RH limits that we set over here in the limit tool. And when we do that, we can take a look at these here. But then the other thing that we can do is go into our reports section, this last tab up here. And there are 2 kinds of reports. Actually, in the Professional Plus, there are 3 kinds, but Greater Society has a basic membership, so they have 2, and it gives you an overview report, which allows you to easily print out the, easily print out all of the risks and metrics, as well as the little graphs here and your statistics. So what you would want to do is you want to, click off the sections, the data sets that you're interested in producing a report. For most of you, that's going to be just your one data set. Obviously, you're not going to be printing reports on anybody else's data, and you're just going to click report, and then it will give you options of whether you want that to be emailed to you. Do you want to save it as a PDF? It comes out as a PDF report. The performance report is one that I've found that facility managers or operations staff find useful. It gives them the statistics as well as a graph, but if you have set up these limits here, it will tell you very easily what percentage of time your environment is performing within those limits. So here you can see that they are, this data shows that they're constantly over the limit where they want to be, whereas here they're sometimes within the hoped for limit, but very often their temperature is under where they want to be. So that just gives you an example of a performance-based report. Okay, I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint here. So we can, let's see. It's taking just a second to come up. There we go. Okay. Hopefully everybody's still with me. Okay, so we covered taking a look at your data in graphical format, taking a look at your data in the risks and metrics format, taking a look at your data by statistics. And again, as a review, we discussed that part of what we're going to be looking at is how your building envelope protects the collections that you have in your storage room and galleries. And one of the things that's nice that we need to do that is to be able to compare what's going on inside our building to what's going on outside. And so what you saw when I was in the Greater Hudson Heritage Networks account is that we've already uploaded the data from the nearest outdoor weather station to you. So for some of you that will be fairly close by. For others of you it might be not so close, but will be more or less representative of the external climate conditions in your area. So if you don't see your county represented, let me know. And you can also check it yourself by going back into the Data Manager section. Again, the Data Manager, this is where instead of going to upload data and choosing your own data, you're going to go into the section on weather data. And it will ask you for your country, the state, the location, and you can choose from a list of choices. Again, most of that is done for you and already organized within our account by county. Okay. So as part of this program, as part of the program Receiving the Logger, we're asking you to upload your data monthly. And if you have any trouble, you should feel free to contact me directly or Priscilla and Carrie, and we will make sure that one of us or one of the circuit riders is available to help you. So wanted to thank Priscilla and Carrie and the Greater Hudson Heritage Network for the opportunity to teach you about the PEM2 and the eClimate Notebook program. As always, I'm grateful to the staff at the Image Permanence Institute for their help in getting us set up with their equipment and program, as well as IMLS for funding this program for us all. Carrie, Priscilla, have people been sending in any questions?
Yes, thank you so much. That was really informative. I'm sure all of our heads are spinning right now. But while you were giving your presentation, some questions did come through. We'll go one by one. One of the questions is, how frequently should the PEM2 be calibrated?
So the units that you receive were all given this 5-point NIST calibration recently, and so that's a very high level of calibration as opposed to some other loggers on the market. So if you're just getting a new logger, you're good to go. IPI recommends that their logger be recalibrated every 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
I like to have people check the calibration on their logger on a yearly basis, or if, let's say, you're using it in a special exhibits gallery and you can check it at a point when you change over exhibits or something like that. No matter the quality of the sensor, sensors do drift over time. And so I think Image Permanence Institute feels that after 2 to 3 years, it would be expected that the drift could be enough to make it worth sending the unit back and paying for the recalibration fee.
Okay. That would actually lead to another one. Do they need to register the PEM2s for the warranty? What do you recommend about that? Or is there a warranty problem?
I think that for the loggers that they're receiving within the program, we can probably take care of that. I think all of the PEM2 loggers are automatically covered by their 3-year warranty.
Okay, as long as they don't drop kick them across the floor if they get frustrated. Is that right?
No, that would be unwise.
That would be unwise. Okay. Is there a minimum memory size for the flash drive? I think the slip that you included the information on gives the information. Ultimately, if these data files do not take up a lot of memory, so it does not need to be a gigabyte flash drive. It can be a few megabytes, and once your data, if I can't imagine that it will fill up within the year's worth of data. It's not going to happen even if you have a small drive. If it should, you can delete the files from the flash drive. The data will remain within the PEM2. Okay.
So it should not be an issue, even if they have a small, small file size on their flash drive.
Okay.
Don't spend a lot of money on the flash drive for this purpose.
Oh, okay. Another question is there a tutorial that's available on the eClimate website for uploading the data?
There is in that resources section a little video, but again, people will have the PDF of this, and so they'll be able to go through it again, screenshot by screenshot, if that will be helpful, and they'll have the notes as well.
Okay. And is there a prompt to go the manage hierarchy after uploading?
There is not. So if you do not do that, let me take you to our account here. Nope, wrong. Oh, I'm no longer the presenter, so you're not going to see me moving around on the screen. If you do not manage your hierarchy,
we can make you the presenter quickly if you wish.
Okay, if that's quick and easy for Carrie to do.
Oh, I'm sorry, we can't actually. Sorry.
We can't, no, because you're speaking. Okay,
yeah,
well, I will just describe when on the left-hand menu, when you see that hierarchy with all the check boxes and the pluses and minuses, everything that's organized within the hierarchy will be there, and then there is another section that will say unassigned data sets or unassigned locations. And so if you have, like once you first upload your data and you go click to graph, that's where your data set will be, at the bottom of that hierarchical list in the unassigned data locations. So once you get there and see that, that can be your reminder to go manage the hierarchy, and you only do that one time. Once you've done that, then you're all set, and you don't have to do it during future data uploads.
Okay. We have another question that just came in. Can you upload multiple P2 files at once, or do you need to upload one at a time?
No, you can upload more than one at once.
Oh,
I don't remember what the limit is. It might be something like 4 or 5, but you can do them as batches.
Okay, all right. And then we had one comment that said they should not, basically everyone listed should be identifiable as far as their organizations, not just BHS or Historical Society. Is that correct? To make sure that they all have a very identifiable login name? so that it doesn't
Yes.
seem to be confusing and redundant?
Right. And again, once you manage your hierarchy, even if you are the historical society, you know, maybe the only historical society in Erie County that's participating in the program. But that's why, you know, it will be helpful to all of us if you are able to include, without making it so lengthy that you can't see it on that left-hand window. So again, you have sort of to have to find a balance between sort of not giving it a tremendously long file name and, you know, making it something that at least we can figure out who you are.
Yeah, and that's a good idea, because looking through the name of the organizations, one could put itself down as CHS for the Town Historical Society, but that can also be the same one for another organization. So just using their initials are not going to be clear enough for this case.
Right, but presumably there may not be two CASs within a particular county.
Yeah, hopefully not. Okay. And I saw
So
that
again, once people, I sort of feel like we can give people the ability to manage the hierarchy and sort of set up what's appropriate, and as people start uploading their data sets, we'll be able to contact people and sort of say, you know, we're having trouble. You know, we'll be able to look at them by their username and everything. So so if there's a problem, you'll hear from us.
Okay. We have another question for you. If we set up a free account for our institution on the website, can we upload the files to both our own free one and to Greater Hudson?
Yes. Yes, you can. You're doubling your work, which is fine, you know, but you're welcome to do that. And if you don't want to do that work throughout the whole year, at the end of the year's worth of monitoring, you know, it's easy to do that, and you'd be able to upload the whole year's worth of data in one fell swoop. Again, you're always able to export your data from the eClimate Notebook program, and so you can export it from one account, put it into a different account. You can export it and, you know, view it in Excel. So you can do that for your own free account and the GHHN account as you go, or just wait to the end of the year.
Now we have two interesting comments. One came through that says, yikes, I feel overwhelmed. And another one said, can you summarize our next steps briefly, which might help the person who's feeling overwhelmed.
Okay. So again, I think for the person who's feeling overwhelmed, they should, you know, wait. They'll get their package in the mail, or hopefully they have it. They should wait till they get the notes of this presentation from you, and then I would recommend that they, you know, that they print it out and that they follow it, you know, step by step. You know, that take it into the storeroom, put in your flash drive, launch the logger. That's the first thing. Get your logger set up and monitoring data. And then if they need a little bit of hand-holding to do the first upload, they're welcome to contact me, and I can set up a time to walk them through that. We can get them, you know, a circuit rider to visit. But I've worked with a number of different institutions, and where the staff had very limited technological savvy, I will say, and with these screenshots, they were able to reliably get themselves up and running and get their data up online. So I know it can be done even if you answered with the I feel lost online category. We can get you through this. So the first thing is get the logger in the location, start getting some data on there, and then we'll have something to look at when we get you up online.
Speaking of getting it set up, one person wrote in, I noticed that the unit is mounted onto a wall using nails. Can we use Velcro strips instead, or is the monitor too heavy for it?
I think that depends on, you know, I would think that it is too heavy just to use those little, like the little Velcro tabs or buttons. But if you're willing to put, you know, a big swatch of it on the back, you should be okay. But again, you want to be able to have easy access to it, and so if there's room on a shelf or cabinet, that's fine as well.
Okay. We'll give you another
minute. One thing I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, one other thing to add to that is that if it's in your gallery spaces, you want to make sure that it's not in a place that would be accessible to visitors. I don't know why these units would be of interest, but they are surprisingly interesting to both little and big hands alike, and so they are expensive, and we want people to understand that if you put it in your gallery, it needs to be secured either with like one of those plastic zip ties, or something that means that it will stay there for the year.
That's a good point. We'd hate to see those go walking. Are there any other questions from our participants? If you do, you can throw a last one to Carrie and she'll process it. But meanwhile, just to touch on what Rachel was saying, the next steps for us is those who have not received your monitor, you will be getting them this week. So not to worry, they're on the way. If you don't receive them by next week, you should just reach out, give me a quick call so I can find out where they are, since they are all registered and insured in the post. Secondly, by the end of the week, you will receive your link to this recorded webinar, the PowerPoint presentation, as well as the transcript for this. So all the information that you heard today, and Rachel being able to share the information, you'll be able to listen to over and over again as many times as you wish. At that same time, in that email, you will also receive a request to fill out a survey. Survey is so important for us to try to make this the best learning experience possible. All of that should be coming to you by the end of the week. So take a look on Friday for an email that comes through. We do have one last question. Does the PEM2 have to be standing up to work? In other words, does it need to be standing up, or can they lay it down flat?
It does not need to be standing up to work. It can be laid down flat. The important thing is, I pointed out in the picture of the unit where those sort of little hash mark are, which is where the sensor is located. So you just want to make sure that that is not down, that is at least up. So that having it standing up is really designed to allow you to be able to walk by and take a look at the conditions on the LCD screen. But if you find those disruptive or it's a space issue, you can lie it down.
Okay. Here's another question. When will we have access to the eClimate Notebook site?
It is, I can show you, in fact, oh, no, I can't because I'm no longer the presenter. But I can send you, Priscilla, tonight the list of the accounts that are already set up, and you could get that out as soon as you can get that out, and then anyone else who is not included in that list will be able to, we should have by the end of the week.
Okay, we'll probably send that to everyone by the end of the week, because today I did get a couple of last-minute additions for PEM2s, and they're going in the mail. So they're not even in the list yet. So why don't we tell everyone we'll get this all out in the big email going out on Friday so that they have everything there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Any other questions, Carrie?
If anyone's feeling adventurous, they can try, entering their institutional name, all one word, and then with the password of C2C online.
See if that works. Okay. Oh, one person said they already did that and just got in. Thank you, Anna, so much for letting us know that, Anna. And another question. There you go. Speak and you shall find. Another question, reporting once a month, does that run from November to December or only for the month of November? November 1st to November 30th, or how would they?
Right, so ideally, there's your monitor is going to keep on chugging away and monitoring taking a reading every 30 minutes. So, so there's no hard and fast rules about like when you download, but in order to be able to help you, in order to make sure that everyone's successfully participating, and for us to be able to take a look and prepare our presentation for December, I'd like everybody to be able to do their first upload within the next week, and then to do an upload, let's say at either the beginning of December, before the next presentation. So we can start taking a look at that data together in December. And then, everybody should sort of pick what works for them. I used to like, when I was doing monitoring, saying like the first Monday of every month was when I would do my data downloads, uploads. And if something unexpected came up and that meant that I couldn't do it on the first Monday, I would do it the next chance I got, the data still being recorded. But, to get yourself into some sort of groove so that you remember to do it on a monthly basis, that ensures that you're checking on your, not only the monitor itself, that everything's working and in order, that you're actually taking a look at your data and starting to get a sense of what your conditions really are.
Okay, and if they run into problems, they should quickly send you a fast email, which is what we have up right now on the screen, is contact information. And then I would think if they run into any other challenging issues, they can give me a call or email me, and we'll see what we can do to get a consultant with the circuit riders out there to help with their positioning. Maybe they have multiple places and they need to find the best place to put the one monitor. So you can do that, and if Rachel wants to have this information up and running by the next webinar, then folks might want to contact me as soon as possible, because with the holidays coming up, things are going to get very hectic. So please do take in mind about that opportunity. So I think that was our last question that had come up. And just to refresh everyone's memory, the next webinar will be on December 10th at 1 o'clock, and you have your homework as far as getting all the monitors up and running for that next one. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to Rachel. Her website, or excuse me, her email address is up on the screen here, as well as contact information for Greater Hudson, and to reach out to Carrie and myself if you have any issues. And we'd like to thank everyone so much for joining us for all across the state, and especially for IMLS for funding today's program, and for Rachel Ehrenstein for all of her great work and guidance and walking us through the great myriad and mysteries of environmental controls, and for Carrie, who was able to take care of the problems today with any technology that might have come up. But remind you, just keep an eye on your mail for Friday for the evaluations,